The crowd was loud, the tension was real, and right in the middle of it stood a man who thought he had something to prove. He stepped forward with confidence, eyes locked, ego leading the way, believing this was his moment to rise. A public challenge, bold and unexpected, aimed straight at a legend. People leaned in, whispers spreading, cameras turning, waiting for something dramatic to unfold. For a split second, it felt like anything could happen. But what he didn't understand was that some names carry more than fame. They carry discipline, speed, and a lifetime of mastery. The air shifted, silence replaced the noise, and in just 10 seconds, everything changed. What started as confidence quickly turned into something else, something heavier. Regret didn't knock politely. It hit instantly, leaving behind a moment no one there would ever forget. The moment he stepped forward, you could see it written all over his face, confidence mixed with a dangerous level of ignorance. He wasn't just challenging a man, he was stepping into the presence of Bruce Lee without truly understanding what that meant. To him, this looked like a simple opportunity, a quick way to gain attention, maybe even respect from the crowd watching closely. His posture was bold, shoulders squared, chin slightly raised, as if he had already convinced himself that this would be easy. What he didn't realize was that real mastery doesn't announce itself loudly, it doesn't need to show off, and it certainly doesn't rely on empty confidence. It is built quietly, through years of discipline, repetition, failure, and refinement that most people never see. He had likely trained somewhere, learned a few techniques, maybe even won a few small fights, and that gave him just enough belief to think he could stand against someone whose entire life revolved around perfection of movement and control. That's where the real mistake began. Not in the challenge itself, but in the assumption that all fighters operate on the same level. He saw a man standing there and judged him like any other opponent, completely missing the depth behind those calm eyes. There's a difference between knowing how to fight and becoming the embodiment of fighting itself, and he couldn't see that line. The crowd around them added fuel to his confidence. People were watching, some whispering, some expecting drama, and in that moment, attention became his motivation. It's easy to feel powerful when eyes are on you, when adrenaline rises, and when your ego starts telling you that this is your moment to shine. But attention can be deceptive, because it makes you forget to measure reality. Instead of analyzing the situation, instead of asking himself whether he truly understood the skill level he was facing, he leaned deeper into that false sense of control. Every second he stood there, his belief grew stronger, but it was built on nothing solid. Meanwhile, across from him stood someone completely different, calm, composed, almost effortless in presence. There was no need for loud gestures or aggressive moves, just a quiet awareness that spoke louder than any words. That contrast alone should have been enough to signal danger. But confidence without understanding often blinds people to the most obvious signs. He mistook silence for weakness, stillness for hesitation, and calmness for lack of ability. This is where many people go wrong, not just in fights but in life itself. They assume that what they see on the surface is all there is, forgetting that true skill often hides beneath simplicity. He didn't prepare for what he couldn't see, and because of that, he walked into a situation already at a disadvantage. His confidence pushed him forward, but it also trapped him in a mindset where backing down wasn't an option anymore, even if a small part of him started to question his decision. The space between them felt charged, like the air itself was waiting for something to break it. From the outside, it looked simple, two men standing face to face. But beneath that stillness was a level of readiness most people couldn't even recognize. The challenger shifted his weight slightly, trying to read the situation, trying to predict what might come next. But prediction requires familiarity, and this was a territory he didn't truly understand. Across from him, Bruce Lee remained almost motionless, his posture relaxed, eyes focused, yet calm, as if time itself had slowed down around him. Then it happened. And it happened so fast that the crowd didn't even process it in real time. There was no dramatic wind-up, no obvious signal, no warning that could be tracked or countered. Just a sudden shift, clean, precise, and unbelievably fast. It wasn't just speed in the physical sense. It was timing, awareness, and control all working together in perfect alignment. By the time the challenger's brain attempted to register the movement, his body was already reacting to something it hadn't prepared for. That's the difference between trained reflex and mastered instinct. One reacts after seeing, the other moves before the opponent even realizes there was something to see. The strike, or movement, whatever it was, carried an efficiency that made it almost invisible. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary effort, just direct execution. It's the kind of precision that doesn't come from casual practice, but from countless hours of refining every inch of movement until it becomes second nature. The challenger's stance broke for a fraction of a second, and in a real confrontation, that fraction is everything. It's the gap where control is lost, where dominance is established without needing a prolonged exchange. What shocked everyone wasn't just how fast it happened, but how controlled it was. There was no chaos, no flailing, no sign of struggle. It was clean, almost surgical, like watching something that had been practiced to perfection long before this moment ever arrived. The crowd reacted a second too late, their eyes widening, as they tried to replay what they had just witnessed. Some of them probably questioned whether they had even seen it correctly, because movements at that level don't register the same way as ordinary actions. They blur the line between anticipation and execution. For the challenger, it felt different. Inside that moment, time didn't feel fast, it felt overwhelming. His body betrayed him, unable to keep up with what had just occurred. His confidence, which had seemed so solid just seconds earlier, now had cracks forming through it. Not because of pain, but because of realization. He had just experienced a level of speed and precision that didn't match anything he had prepared for. It exposed a gap he didn't know existed, a difference in skill so wide that it couldn't be bridged in the heat of the moment. At first, it didn't hit him all at once. There was a brief pause, almost like his mind was trying to catch up with something his body had already experienced. The energy that once fueled his confidence now felt heavy, shifting into something unfamiliar. Standing there in front of everyone, he could feel the weight of their attention in a completely different way. Just seconds ago, those eyes felt like support, like validation, but now they felt like pressure, like silent witnesses to a moment he wished he could take back. Across from him, Bruce Lee remained composed, unchanged, as if nothing significant had even happened. That contrast made it worse. There was no celebration, no reaction, no need to prove anything further. It was already done. And in that stillness, the reality of what had just happened started to settle in. Regret doesn't always arrive with noise or drama. Sometimes it slips in quietly, tightening its grip as understanding grows. He began to replay the last few moments in his head, trying to figure out where things went wrong, but the answer wasn't in the action itself. It was in the decision to step forward without truly knowing what he was stepping into. His posture shifted, subtly at first, but enough to show the internal change. The same shoulders that were once squared with pride now carried hesitation. His stance, once firm and confident, felt uncertain. It wasn't just about losing control in a physical sense. It was about losing the certainty he had built inside himself. That kind of realization hits deeper than any strike because it forces you to confront the gap between who you thought you were and who you actually are in that moment. The crowd didn't need to say anything. Their silence spoke louder than any reaction could. Some of them understood what they had just witnessed, while others simply felt the shift without fully grasping it. But for him, there was no confusion. He felt it clearly. The instant he crossed a line, he wasn't ready. For the instant his confidence turned into exposure. It's one thing to make a mistake in private, where only you have to deal with it. It's another thing entirely when that mistake unfolds in front of an audience where every second feels amplified. Regret began to take shape not just as a feeling, but as a realization of consequences. He understood now that this wasn't about a single moment of failure. It was about misjudgment, about underestimating something that demanded respect. His mind searched for ways to recover, to regain some sense of control or dignity, but certain moments don't offer that option. They simply exist, leaving you to carry what comes after. And in that space, something changed. The noise of the crowd faded into the background, the tension dissolved, and all that remained was a quiet awareness of what had just unfolded. A moment that started with boldness had ended with clarity, revealing a truth he couldn't ignore. No matter how much he might have wanted to rewrite those 10 seconds in front of everyone who had just seen it happen,